Welcome to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Industry has a million cool stories, and Jim talks to the movers and shakers who are making them happen. Let's dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Manufacturing Talks. I'm Jim Vinosky, your host. Very glad today to be joined by Angie Simon. She is co-founder and executive director at the Heavy Metal Summer Experience, and also by Maria Ford, who is president of commercial and industrial at Stanley Black Decker, and they own DeWALT, which is very important. We'll talk about that. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Very good to have you here. Of course, we had the Forbes article. I will have a link to that in the show description. You guys should all check that out. But so we're here to talk about Angie's program, the Heavy Metal Summer Experience, which is a phenomenal outreach for promoting skilled trades. But before we do, let's start with you, Angie. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got doing what you're doing today.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim. I have been in the construction industry now for, close to 40 years, pretty much. Started 1 year out of college, mechanical engineering graduate from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and just really was focusing on wanting to be a hands-on job, not necessarily behind a desk the whole time. So I ended up going to work for a contractor. And so I started my 1 year out of college at Western Allied Mechanical and just kind of grew up at that company. We were a design build mechanical contractor in the San Francisco Bay Area, and young project manager right off the bat, and grew up there learning how to run projects and not realizing that oftentimes I was the only woman around. I played a lot of sports and I didn't really care. I didn't notice me being the only woman in there, but I grew up there and been there. I retired after 35 years at Western Allied, and in 2008 became our president and at Western Allied, and we grew from about 40 million in 2008 to about 125 million when I retired in 2021.
Wow.
And in the course of that, I was also very involved in SMACNA, the Sheet Metal Contractors Association, the National Sheet Metal Contractors Association, and was asked when I was on the board, and then was asked to go through the chairs, and eventually did. So became our first woman president for SMACNA, first woman president of any of our mechanical, electrical, plumbing trades, which is so NECA and MCA need to step up and catch up with us. But and then after I retired, well, actually right before I retired, during the course of being president of SMACNA, I learned everywhere I went to talk to contractors, we were all worried about where we're going to find tradespeople. So that's where I decided, while I was still at Western Allied, that I'd run a summer camp with East Palo Alto, which is a neighbor of ours at underserved area, and just thought, why not show these kids how we can, what they can do as a career in the trades. So myself and my friend Rick Hermanson up in Seattle, who heard me say I wanted to do this, who wanted to do it with me, we decided we would co-found Heavy Metal Summer Experience. And we can go into further after we hear from Maria, but I can tell you more about that after that. And then once I retired, I decided that I would take that to the next level. So.
Excellent. Yeah. So Maria, how about you?
I actually started as an intern here at Stanley Black Decker.
Wow.
Right out of college, or actually my last year in college, I interned, and I followed the footsteps of one of my very good friends who I talk often about. I still get to work with her every single day. I had no intentions of getting into this space, but at the time I went to college in Maryland, and Black Decker was obviously a very well-known company, and started my journey. Even a couple of years in, I still was like, is this really the industry where my heart will end up? And 26 years later, I'm still here. And I think I love it, the industry more now than I did when I was younger. So it's been a special place. I've had a lot of different roles, whether it's been in, sales and marketing. And my last I would say 5 to 6 years specifically in this space and in what we call kind of the commercial and industrial building space, if you will, and getting to work with, people like Angie and seeing her vision, and so many incredible people, both men and women, continue to make it just an awesome place. People ask a lot about why have you stayed the whole time? And it's because of the people. I think it's because of the people, and it's the industry that we get to serve. And I still feel like I have a long way to go in it. So exciting and excited to be here today with both of you.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm a mechanical engineer by degree as well, Angie.
All right.
I've spent my entire career in manufacturing. So when this came across my email as a potential story, I was all jazzed up. I mean, so cool to get in touch with the folks at Stanley Black Decker. Anyone who's a gearhead would love to do that. And then to hear what you guys have going on, Angie, is just phenomenal. So let's talk a little bit more about that. I had to point out in the article that heavy metal does not refer to my 80s introduction to my kind of music, unfortunately, but it is really good stuff. So let's dig into a little more on how you do the outreach for the skilled trades.
Well, we did think it was a fun name. We thought because we do work with a lot of metal, we decided this is kind of fun, and it does get a little attention that way for sure. And my husband's a Kiss fan, so I'm like, okay.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Well, what that first summer, in the summer of 21, when Rick Hermanson up in Seattle ran his camp and I ran mine in Menlo Park, we had no idea it was such a great experience. There was a secondary benefit of that, in that our employees at Western Allied just fell in love with working with these kids and working with the camps and seeing these kids and their parents at graduation and how excited they were. And they loved the idea that they were showing the next generation their trade. I mean, particularly with our union pipe fitters and sheet metal, we're very proud of what they did, and they should be, because they've had amazing careers. And they just loved the fact that these kids were interested in that. And we had the story I share is at that very first graduation for Hermanson up there in Seattle, a mom pulled us aside, and she was a housekeeper, she said, and her husband was a framer, and her daughter was in a kind of dark place her last semester, senior year, because she didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. She said she didn't want to go to college, but she just had really lost her way. And her mom started crying. She said she was very depressed, and she didn't know what to do and how to get her daughter back. And she said, however, 6 weeks later, after being in my camp for 6 weeks, she got her daughter back, and she felt like she had us to thank for that. And that kind of hooked me. I was at that point, I'm like, gosh, if I can save one kid out of every camp and help them find a career. And now that young lady is in her 5th year at her apprenticeship for a sheet metal contractor. So she'll be making 6 figures here in about a year when she gets out of the apprenticeship and is a journey person. So that's kind of just, at that point, I'm like, well, we need to tell more people about this. So I was still traveling a bit and talking to contractors. So I started when I was SMACTA president, and I started kind of challenging them a little bit, saying, we all complain about this and we're all worried about the future, but why don't we do something about it? It's time for you to get some skin in the game and take a step up and be a host camp. I'll give you a playbook. I'll write, Rick Hermanson and I kind of put together a playbook of everything we did to try to make it the easy button, and I'll hold your hand and I'll help you, but you need to take the time to step up and do it. And when the contractors or the training centers that do step up, they realize it's really great for their companies. And we pretty much have 100% retention of our host camps because they enjoy doing it so much, and it really is good for them. And we're getting a lot of the kids into the trades. So it's been an experience. I mean, you have challenges working with high school kids, but these kids, they don't know, a lot of them don't even know how to use a tape measure. They've never measured anything in their life. And now all of a sudden we're soldering and welding with them. So it's quite the adventure.
Well, and that's so huge. And you point out something that is critical, in addition to just not having the numbers to replace the last generation that we held trades and manufacturing work as a positive, the baby boomers who are going out in droves now. We don't have the skills because we don't have shop classes in a lot of schools anymore. We don't have the home projects, kids working on their cars. So exactly right about the youth coming in with a much lower level of those skills, just kind of naturally inherent. Now, so huge kudos to you guys for founding that. Let's talk about then, obviously you started small and you wanted to grow. That took some money. So Maria, how did you guys find out about Heavy Metal Summer Experience?
So one of our strong advocates here at Stanley Black Decker, a close friend of Angie's, his name is John Hallen, had been connected, I think, with Angie through the industry over the years. And the timing of Angie's launch of her program, as well as our corporate timing of our Grow the Trades initiative, really met, I would say, at a perfect crossroads. Our CEO announced a $30 million commitment when we first kind of the inception of the program. And at that time, as I mentioned, John really lobbied and brought forward this opportunity with Angie and her organization. And from there, it's become one of our, our biggest areas that we invest from a monetary perspective, as well as, resource perspective, whether it's providing tools and PPE to the students. And more importantly, this year specifically, getting involved, right? Getting some of our employees involved in our regions. We always talk, Jim, that we can give time, or we can give money, and we can give tools, but giving our time as a company with our employees is so much more important. And we did that this year, which was really fun. We had a lot of our employees actually go out to some of the regional camps and participate, our teams in the field. And it really brings everything full circle for our Grow the Trades program. So that is how we kind of started with Angie. And I would say every year, right, Angie, we're evolving and coming up with more creative ways that we can, be involved in the experience for the kids. I know myself, I had the opportunity to participate in a camp this year, and it was awesome. It was really awesome to see. There was about 14 students, and it brought everything together as to why we participate as a company.
They seeded our very first. We wouldn't have been where we are without the seeding. The very first grant we got from DeWALT just changed Black Decker Stanley changed where we were going. So it's amazing. Yeah.
I was going to say that hands-on piece is huge. It came across. I talked to James, one of the recent students who went through the program, and he's actually familiar with trades, came from that background, but he was talking about how great it was even for him to be so hands-on, but also especially for those students who didn't have the background, and how they picked it up so fast because it was so hands-on with people who do that day to day, that kind of work. Let's talk a little bit more about what the camps look like then. Angie, tell us what a typical one, the length of time and how it's run and that kind of thing.
So the camps are hosted either by contractors or by union training centers on the sheet metal, piping, or electrical side, or a combination of all of that. In that oftentimes we do team with the JATCs, the training centers, as well as the contractor shops. But we typically ask for at least 30 hours, preferably close to 40 hours of camp. And so, like, for example, my old company, we would run it from 2:30 to 5, 3 days a week for 4 weeks, just because that worked with our schedule. But a lot of people have realized, and I think for the kids, it's a little bit easier to do kind of a concentrated either 1 week or 2 week camp where it's in the afternoons for 2 weeks. But so that's how the camps are very flexible in that they're structured very differently across the United States. I mean, this summer we have grown to 51 camps this summer. And so
from 2 to start with.
From 2 to start with, and then to 51. So from 28 kids to we were almost 900 kids this summer. So we have grown immensely. And the part that has made me nervous as we've grown is our partnerships with DeWALT and Milwaukee Tool in regards to the tools. Yeah. They both are DeWALT has continued to step up and say, we'll give you 450 tool bags. We'll give you 600 tool bags. And that's just, that's a huge part of our camps. Every kid, when they start the camp, we fundraise for a set of Red Wing boots. Red Wing gives us a discount, but they don't give us the boots, but we fundraise for those. And so the first day for the kids to get in their boots, that makes them feel like they belong. And it's a big step to see them put those boots on. And most of these kids have never even owned boots. And then they learn a lot about safety that first day, particularly. We really focus on that, but we also focus on the tools. And it's wonderful when we can get like DeWALT to come out and do a big tool demonstration. The kids love seeing, they take a piece of concrete and they drill into it, or they take a piece of wrought iron and they drill it. They either cut it or they teach them how to cut it. So that's just really great because that's hands-on as well. But there are many projects in our playbook that they make, and depending on the camp, we try to emphasize mechanical, electrical, plumbing, piping, and sheet metal. But sometimes it might be an only electrical camp, or it might be an only sheet metal camp, or it might be only a piping camp. I'm encouraging them to work with other partners too, so the kids get a chance to see all 3 of the MEP trades. But we'll take whatever we can get. And but the camps are very hands-on. The kids work every day. They make projects, and a lot of these projects we keep at the site until graduation. And when their parents come to graduation, they get to show and display all these projects. And we try to make a big deal of graduation because it is a big deal. They've made it through, close to 40 hours of camp, and they've learned. The parent testimonials are amazing because they talk about how much confidence these kids gain in that short week. And I think that's a great thing.
Well, that's great. You made reference to something that's, I think, especially important is there are kids who really aren't destined for college. And so the young lady you talked about, I'm sure, was one of those. And we discouraged that whole line of
Mhm.
career direction for so long. And now it coming back has got to be such a blessing to those kids who are naturally inclined for that.
Yeah. You know,
I
I go ahead, Maria.
we actually had a guidance counselor attend one of the camps, Angie, in Maryland, and
Hmm.
I thought it was really cool. At first I thought maybe he was a student participating. He said, "I'm actually a guidance counselor at schools," and what struck me was he said, "I'm learning about the camps and the trades so that I can go help educate students, parents, and other educators in the system." And I know when I talked to Angie so much about it, it's not just the students, it's usually encouraging and teaching the parents and a lot of the educational system as to why this is a great avenue. So I thought that was interesting. That was the first time I had seen a guidance counselor at one of the camps, and he was blown away. He was
Yeah.
blown away himself, which was kind of neat.
That's great to hear. We had a situation our second year with our camp happened that the superintendent of schools in Southern California, the Laverne School District, her daughter attended our camp.
That's
And so
awesome.
the next summer, before the next summer, she contacted their counselors in that school district and said, "You need to get more kids in this camp." So that
Mhm.
counselor called me up and asked me all kinds of questions. And the next thing you know, she had spoke with the superintendent and said, "Could we, instead of me counseling for college, can I counsel for alternate careers? Can I counsel for other careers besides going to college?" And
Mhm.
they actually gave her a new title, and she's formed a SoCal Trades in the Schools Day. So they go around all the schools and talk about the trades, because she became, just by hearing about our camp and learning what these kids learn, she became passionate to realize that, yeah, probably 2/3 of her high school are not going to go to college. So give
Right.
them a chance. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, and that is a critical point that you made, Maria, and you talked about for the article, Angie, is that whole piece of having to educate both educators and parents along with the youth.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think parents are very surprised when they come to graduation. Part of that is, I think, during the course of the week, they're taught by union pipe fitters and sheet metal workers and electricians who are making very good money, and they talk about the benefits, and they go to the training centers and learn what the long-term career benefits are, the pensions that they have. And the parents are at graduation, they're very surprised by all that, and
Yeah.
at that point you see the acceptance on their faces. And it's really fun for us. It's really, for me and anybody that works with me, it's really good to go to graduations, because it really does energize you and see those kids and how happy they are.
Yeah.
And the parent testimonials we have are just amazing. So it's
Yeah.
fun to see that. But I love it when we can get counselors to come, because
Mhm.
they put the word out there. It's really a great idea. So
That might be your phase 2, Angie.
yeah, get counselors to come on out. My phase
There you
3
go.
is getting it back into the high schools. That's my ultimate goal. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Well, I got to see a bunch of pictures of camps and graduations to prepare for the article, and it was so cool seeing the kinds of work they were doing, welding, and saw one picture. I think it was like 3-inch diameter pipe where they're putting Victaulic couplings on it. Just amazing stuff that these kids would never have experienced, even the ones who have some background in the trades, getting to play around with that. Now, Maria, you talked about going to one of the camps. What was your experience as far as that hands-on working with people who do this day to day?
Yeah, we were actually at a local training center, as Angie mentioned, and then we got to tour a Bowers Mechanical. They're a local mechanical shop here. We went into their sheet metal fab shop, and as you can imagine, right, massive, ton of work going on, very busy, and the kids they were in a candy shop. I mean, their eyes they're looking around. There was so much activity going on. And I think that for them was really like the highlight of the day, as well as earlier in that week, they participated in kind of a build project at the local training center. So I asked them on a break, I said, "What are most of your friends doing this week and in the summer?" And I said, "Let me guess." And I held up my phone. I'm like, sitting on their phones. And they were like, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, so think about what you're doing. It's a pretty unique experience." And they were great. I mean, they were engaging. They were talking to all the folks on the floor working, getting to see all the machines in play. It was a really neat experience. And then I thought one of the coolest things, Jim and Angie, was just asking and understanding what kids raised their hand to come versus were proactive and wanted to do it versus maybe the parents kind of volunteering them.
Yep.
A majority of the kids at this camp, and this was in DC area, wanted to come, which I thought was really encouraging versus parents forcing.
Yep.
They all were very excited to be there. And most of them, when I asked, do you feel like you could have a future in this? And they were very definitive that, yes, this is something they wanted to do. So I thought that was great. There was about 14 kids. To Angie's point, my group was a great mix of both boys and girls, which I also loved too. I thought that was really encouraging. So it was really cool to be a part of it. I didn't get to see the graduation, but Angie, I think to Angie's point, my counterparts did, and they said that was really special to see the parents there and excited to see the kids were, engaging about what they had learned that past week.
That's great.
Good deal.
That's
Well,
great.
and so you guys have grown astronomically, Angie.
Yes.
That
Yes.
had to be a challenge all to itself. As you look forward, I'm sure you're looking at more crazy growth and more demand. What are the biggest challenges that you have?
Well, we want to continue to grow, but we have target cities too. We have target areas because we are in we're on 29 states, I think, right now across the United States. But we're focusing on certain areas just because we feel like there's more needs. We would like to continue to grow near the DC area and get potentially even another camp there, just because it's an area we could use it. Same with the Chicago area. But we also don't have much in Texas, and we have very little in the South. We have nothing in Florida. So we're just working on areas. When we got some national media, I couldn't believe how many contacts I got from parents from Florida that they really wanted their kids to be in this. So, I can tell that there's a need. I love being in like Rhode Island. We're in Rhode Island, but I would like to be in some of the areas where the bigger cities are too, because I know there's a lot of people we could help in those cities. So that's one of our challenges. We have to find the right host to be able to host the camps to do that. I'm currently working I got a call from the Compton School District in Southern California, and Compton's a really underserved area. But their president of their school district, a very dynamic guy, called me and saw us and said, I want to do it here. So I'm working hard to put together, tie together enough training centers and contractors to be able to host a camp there. So I guess I'm kind of a connector is what my goal is to connect people.
Yep.
And then the other challenge is just we need to hire an executive director. I am playing that role, but I would love to have the role of continue to be the voice. But the 120 emails a day is probably a little overwhelming for one person right now. So I'm working. That was what I thought I got away from when I retired from West Valley.
When you retired.
Retired, yeah. So, but yeah, so the board. We just had our board meeting, and our goal is to hire an executive director by January 1st, and that will be the first step. And to do that, though, we continue to have to fundraise because we are a nonprofit. So that's another thing you learn when you used to run a for-profit company. It's a whole new world when you run a nonprofit. So, but I've been very touched by the donations of the individual people we've also gotten because of some of the media. So. Well,
and toward that end, Maria, you guys had a big announcement, right? As I went to press with the article.
We did. Angie's giggling. We did. We made a commitment and announcement of $60 million. That's Angie, amazing. I'd love to say all 60 is going to you, but it is around our Grow the Trades initiative, That's Jim. Awesome. And obviously, Angie's organization will continue to be a big chunk of, where we place our time, money, and effort as well. So it's a really big commitment that we're continuing to make. And I think organizations like Angie are exactly the type of organizations we want to partner, our brand with. You had asked Angie a question. I was going to take a step back. One thing that came up, Angie, when I was in one of the camps, just asking about like resources. And one of the kids said, it was really hard for me to get here today. My parents leave for work early in the morning, so I had to Uber. Yeah. And expensive. Another kid mentioned too, he's like, transportation is a challenge for me. My parents work later. I didn't really have a way to get home. So as we keep doing more and more of this, I think we all learn as a group, like what are the avenues or the barriers for kids to even just participate. It might be that they want to, but we've got some challenges. So I don't know. As you make a call out for help, I think there's so many creative ways that people can participate and be a part of it. But I would just end by saying I know DeWALT's committed, as we are to many big initiatives in the industry, but this is one that we'll continue to get behind. So.
Yeah, the transportation side is a challenge for the kids, and we are encouraging, like, for example, if it's 45 minutes away from a camp where there's a couple kids that want to do it, we're encouraging the school districts even to work with them. In the summer times, the school districts have buses sometimes that they can use, or they can get the kids there. But it is absolutely a challenge for the kids. We've had a mom and dad drive a kid over an hour every day just to get into the camp, and that was awesome that they did that. And we also got there's a mom in South Africa that heard about it, and she has relatives in Chicago. So next summer she's bringing her 2 kids to stay with the relatives, and they're going to do a camp in Chicago next summer. So
that's awesome.
They're coming from South Africa, so that's pretty amazing. So, but
well,
yes.
Right now you are what, in 30 states?
We're about 30 states, 29 or 30 states, and we have 4 camps in Canada.
Yeah. Any thoughts of going international at some point?
Canada and
executive director
right now is probably enough. So I haven't really thought. I did get asked by somebody, would you think, what about Brazil? I'm like, I can't handle that right now. So honestly, I think we're good with the United States and Canada right now, anyhow.
Yeah,
so.
Well, understandably.
Yeah.
If you think 5 years out, where do you think I assume you're shooting for all 50 states, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, as long as, my poor Dawn is my friend Dawn, and she's my executive assistant kind of, and she's my program manager. And she gets panicked when I start talking about more camps. But as long as we scale up the proper way, we definitely have a desire to be in close to all 50 states. That's one of our goals. And probably expand a little more in Canada as well, because there is a lot of need there in Canada as well. We just had our board meeting and we talked about where do we want to go. It's a little hard to look out 5 years, but we did do that vision. But we are thinking next summer at least 1,200 kids and maybe 1,300. And so I think we got a commitment from both of our partners to provide the tool bags, which is amazing. And so that's the next step. And then every year, I mean, we'll continue to grow. We have seen probably close to 50 or 60% growth from the number of host camps every year, which means we've been jumping on the students. The first few years we more than doubled, but this, we're slowing down just a bit. I don't want to ever have to say no to a host camp that is qualified and ready to do this. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of whether we can afford to have them all handle it. But, I think, it's really gone well. I said it at the board meeting. I really thought when we did this, it would be just dropping a little pebble in the lake and you just see the little ripples. I think we kind of have a wave going on right now.
Yeah, dropped a boulder, didn't you?
I think I dropped a boulder. So no idea this was going to happen. And it's amazing. And I gotta let it, I can't say no. I'm not good at saying no, obviously. So I want to let it keep growing. That's the goal.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, Maria, obviously the money is enormous, but you've talked about the hands-on element. Is that another piece that you guys are going to continue at DeWALT and Stanley Black Decker?
I mean, I think Angie mentioned it, right? The tools are really one of the also biggest factors. So we definitely will continue to think about that. And when I was at the camp in DC, I was like, oh, it'd be so cool if we could host one of these, but I didn't say anything because we got to continue to execute on the ones that, Angie and a lot of our great partners are hosting. So, but yeah, the tools are a huge piece of it, Jim, and will continue to be part of our funding.
Yeah, we talked with DeWALT recently during our board meeting about making sure we're going to put up, have a Zoom meeting with all the camps that are DeWALT's camps, and we want them to get to the camps, the local salespeople. Mm-hmm. I mean, because I do think for them to get to the camp and host that and actually participate, as I said, it builds, it's amazing. It's good for them to see that as well. They need to realize what a great company they're working for, your outside salespeople, because a company like DeWALT, I mean, the dedication they have to our industry is just, it's amazing. It shows in the company. And Maria and I was just thinking, you've been there 27 years. I was at Western Illinois 35 years. And I think you're at a company like that because you feel like you belong and it's a good company. And
that's right.
Yeah. And that's why you stay.
And I think just that is part of our mission, right, is to involve our employees, whether they're in my space or not. We had a host of our, corporate team participate in one of the Connecticut camps. So they could be in a completely separate division of our company, Jim, as Angie knows, and we're still asking them to participate because this is a company-wide, it's actually a global initiative for us around Grow the Trades. Mm-hmm. So it's that important to what and how we kind of execute our brand. So yeah, we'll be involved. I'm excited. This year was the first year for a new camp in Maryland, so I'm excited to see if we have more pop up.
You will.
And I'm excited to see what state's next, Angie.
Yeah,
so.
you will. You know, that to that point, we had a woman in my company. It was a purchasing lady, and her first year she had started, she didn't feel like she was capable to volunteer. And the next year, my young man that was running the camp said to her, "You're very qualified to volunteer. Just volunteer and supervise, right?" And that lady, Justine, she called me on her way home that night after she volunteered for camp. And she said, "Angie, this was the best day of work I've ever had in my life."
Yep.
And I mean, she just had so much fun watching these kids and she just loved it. So it's important to get everybody involved and see what they can give back. And, and we're helping those kids too. So
have you guys got the attention of Mike Rowe yet?
I've met Mike Rowe. We've talked to him, but we haven't got. I haven't been on a show or anything. I would love to do that if I could. But
he's got that new show. It's called People You Should Meet.
Oh,
I think you should do one of those about you, Angie.
That would be wonderful if we could.
Mike Rowe was on this show just a couple of months ago, so I'm going to try to get his attention and lobby for that.
I love it.
Angie's pretty iconic. I call her the queen of the sheet metal world, as I always tell her. When I think of sheet metal, I think of Angie. And many other things, Angie, but
okay, no problem. No,
we'll see what we can do.
I do think that this has grown organically, but I think a lot of it is that I had been in the industry for so long, and a little bit of a unicorn in that we ran a large company, large mechanical contractor. But more than that is I just met so many wonderful people in the construction industry. I love the industry and the people that are in it, and the friendships I've made over the years have been amazing. And so I would love to see, if the kid goes to a camp and they decide they want to go to college, then go major in construction management or mechanical engineering and come work for a company too. Because my son's working my younger son got his degree was industrial technology and packaging and he wanted to do manufacturing, and he's working in the construction industry. And it's just because it's a great industry and it pays very well too. So
yeah, that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. We are about out of time. Any last thoughts from either of you before we wrap up?
I would just say if you're listening to Angie and I and you feel like you want to participate, and even if it's not monetarily or through tools as we do as a company, your time, as Angie mentioned, is equally as valuable and important. And I think we all play a role in driving great initiatives like Angie's. And there's so many different ways you can get involved, right, Angie? It's not just about money and just about giving tools. It's showing up, it's participating, it's talking about your experience. These kids want to know why you're in the industry. Why did you start in the industry? Mm-hmm. We're part of the industry. I'm in a different part of the industry than Angie is, but I'm still a part of it. And it takes telling that story too. So I think in any way you can show up, donate your time and your efforts, I think we need the help, right?
Yeah. And I greatly appreciate all the passion that DeWALT has for our industry, because that's where I have that same kind of passion. And I do think that people just need to see that there is options for these kids. And I remember telling the story that I had gone to school for 5 years, had one job somewhere else, and then I finally started Western Light. So 7 years out of college, I'm working with my pipe fitter, and he was the same age as I was, and he had just bought a house in the Bay Area because he started out of high school. So, again, it's a great career, and I don't know how to, and with AI coming up, it's a career that we know we will have, because AI is wonderful. It helps with a lot of things, but it can't build a building, and it can't drill into concrete. So we're always going to have a construction, and it's a great future for us. So I do appreciate just getting the word out there is what we really want. And partners like DeWALT have been huge for us.
Excellent. Well, you made a believer out of me. I need to get to a camp, so keep me in the loop on what you got going on in Michigan.
You got it.
And I'll be tracking what you guys are doing going forward.
We'll get you invited to at least the one we have in Michigan. We're going to have a couple, I hope, next summer in Michigan. So wonderful.
I look forward to it. Well, Angie Simon with Heavy Metal Summer Experience and Maria Ford from Stanley Black Decker and DeWALT. Thank you both for an absolutely inspiring show.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much. And thank you, Maria. It was great seeing you.
You too.
And as always, thanks to you in the audience. You're why we're here. I continue to be bowled over by what phenomenal shows we have. So This one will be tough to beat. We're going to try to beat it next Tuesday. We'll be back then. So tune in every Tuesday. We'll be here. So in the meantime, I am Jim Vinosky from Manufacturing Talks signing off. So long.
Thanks for tuning in to Manufacturing Talks with Jim Vinosky. Watch for new episodes dropping every Tuesday. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe.